I'm Josh McDonald.
And I'm Miranda Materi, and we are Hand Therapy Academy.
Do you get bored using the same activities day in and day out, kind of repeating the same routine? We're going to take a couple of minutes today and show you some fun, new, different exercises, things that we use all the time in the clinic. These are things that you can use with activities you already have. You can make these things with stuff you maybe already have around the clinic, or we're going to show you how to make some things with some inexpensive options. These are some of our favorite activities, things like a button book and a slosh pipe. We've got translation for fine motor skills. We're going to show you a mirror box and some fun different things to do with rice.
And all of these things can simulate self-cares, fine motor activities, proprioception, sensory. And the great thing about all of these things is that they can be graded and can be scalable. So they can be much harder, or you can make them much easier depending upon your patient's needs.
So let's get started. Let's do one of my personal favorites that I use almost every single day, the button book. Okay, so first we're going to go over the button book. This kind of comes from my background in pediatrics. We actually made the first one here for teaching some of my kids how to do button skills like a level 1 kind of thing. So kind of comes from that phase, and I actually had my mom make it. My mom's a seamstress, so she put this together for me. This is a way to work on self-care and fine motor skills at the same time. I have patients who will work on unbuttoning with 2 hands. I have patients who have one side affected. They'll work on buttoning with just 1 hand. And each page, as you go in, gets a little bit harder. So as they go in, they have to work on those skills. I have patients who have had some kind of amputation. They've lost a thumb, and they've got to figure out how to button. And I'll have patients say, like, I don't do that many buttons. Well, it generalizes to other skills. The smallest page, when we finish that one, we get all the way done, whether they're using 1 hand or 2. They open it up. Ooh, forgot one. That's the easy part. The hard part, people get all excited, like, ooh, I got it. I'm like, we got to put it back for the next person, right? So then they have to do the buttons with just 1 hand. And I'll do this one-handed with my non-dominant hand just so you can see that it is possible, because I'll have patients say, there's no way I can get that with my non-dominant hand. But they're doing 1 hand, non-dominant, dominant if it's the affected side, and they're working on doing that all the way through. Now, we had 1 book, and that book worked great. But I needed a second book because I had enough patients. I had 2 people that needed it at the same time. So I went and said, hey, Mom, can you make me another one? So she made another one. Almost kind of a happy accident, we ended up with a harder button book. This one, the fabric's a little bit more rigid. The holes are horizontal instead of vertical. Some reason that made it harder because you're not pulling with the page edge, you're pulling perpendicular to the page edge. So that ended up a little harder. And then, when you get into the middle, the buttonholes are just a little bit too tight. You can still get it, but it's a little tricky. To make it a little bit more fun, I added some emojis to it, right? We put some stuff in there, make that a little bit more fun. And then at the end, my patients don't always like the button book so much, right? Like they see it come out like, ooh, this is great, this is fun. They're not always so happy with it by the time they're done. So the last one, we made a little poop emoji, because that's usually how people feel by the time they're finished with it. Unfortunately, with bubble paint, it more came out looking like ice cream, but you get the idea. So where do you get one of these things? You can make one. This is just sewn, right? So it's a book that has all these different pages to it, buttons sewn on and buttonholes. I can sew basic stuff like curtains, but I can't really do a button book. So I asked my mom, you've got some options. If you're handy with a sewing machine, you can make your own button book. You can totally make one of these. The cheap option is going to Goodwill, getting a normal button-up shirt, and laying it in front of the patient, have them try. They tell the patients on their own at home, take a shirt, lay it out, do the buttons, practice that a couple of times. Or if it's something you just don't have those options, you want the nice, formal, fancy-looking version, contact us. We may be able to work that deal out with my mom. Now, let's see what Miranda has for us next.
Thanks, Josh. I'm going to be talking about graded motor imagery, and one specific aspect of graded motor imagery that I'll be speaking about is mirror box. So mirror box therapy is something that has a lot of research supporting it. It can be a very effective treatment modality. With that being said, when I give the mirror box to my patients, they're always like, oh, this is hocus pocus. What is she doing? So a very important part of therapy and doing mirror box in therapy is that you're selling it as a treatment. So I always start by explaining the research behind it. I always talk about how it's tricking the brain and how important it is in their recovery of doing mirror box therapy. So a quick demo, you're going to make sure you take off all the jewelry of the hand that you're placing in front of the mirror, because you really want the brain to see it as being your right hand. So this would be for saying that I have right hand CRPS. So I put that in the box, and with this hand, I look in the mirror. If the person is having any type of pain when doing activity, you're not going to have them move their hand at all. You're just going to look in the mirror and have them look at the hand. So making sure that they're not in pain, because you really want the brain to see the involved hand as being normal. So I may ask them to do tendon gliding in front of it, and then I always have to remind them, hey, look in the mirror. It's not doing any good if you're not looking in the mirror. The other thing you can do is you can put cubes in front of it, so you can have them stack them while they're looking in the mirror, or any type of functional tasks you can have them do in front of the mirror. So you may say, well, where can I get a mirror box? Well, you can buy them online. They are quite spendy, or you can go over and watch our quick tutorial on how to make a mirror box for very inexpensive. Now I'd like to go back to Josh.
Thanks, Miranda. We're going to make something different now. One of my favorite things to use for some wrist proprioception is a slosh pipe. When I hand it to patients, it doesn't look like much, but there's water in there, and it wants to shift from one side to the next. So I have them hold it in the middle, elbow to their side, but not pinned when you're in pronation because it's really kind of awkward. Hold here, hold it stable, and they're trying to do small adjustments and kind of stabilization there. I'll set the clock for like 5 minutes, something like that, and say for like 10 or 15 seconds, hold it here. They kind of master it at that point, and then I'll say flip it over. And then hold it here. And these patients who have a disconnection, that proprioceptive disconnect, it's really hard to figure that out. So when they're doing it, they're like kind of sloshing all over. And then by the time the 5 minutes is over, they have a little better idea of it. But it's all about small motor control, small muscle movements, not necessarily big range of motion travel. So every 15 seconds or so, they change it. You can't have that elbow pinned to your side because it kind of hurts the wrist and it gets torqued there. So just kind of a relaxed elbow position. This is something that's super easy to make. This is all stuff you can get for under like 10 bucks at a Home Depot or Lowe's. So let's talk about how we're gonna make it. I went and bought a 2-inch PVC pipe. You can buy these in 2-foot sections. You go down the PVC pipe aisle and you'll see all these giant 10-foot sections. You don't need one of those. They have a little display that has 2-foot sections. 2 foot's a little bit longer. This one's 18 inches. I took any saw. You can go to where they sell the wood trim and they'll have a cart with a saw on it. Just measure 18 inches and hack it off while you're there. Leave the extra pipe there. You don't need it. But about 18 inches, okay? That's like $2. Each of these end caps on the same aisle as you found the pipe is also about $1.50 each, okay? So 2 of those. Then the glue to glue it all together. So you can buy this in a 1 container thing that they don't recommend for plumbing, but this is under no pressure. So it's fine to use the 1 bottle of it. I have it on kind of a junk towel for us. I got permission to use this one because I can never do this without making a drippy mess. So we've got this primer and glue that bond the PVC pipe. If you don't do that, it'll always kind of drip a little bit. So you want the glue just to hold it steady, okay? So I would take, and I'll do one end of this. I'll take the primer and I do it over top of the container, right? Because I'm gonna make a mess. And I'm gonna run this around and it's gonna drip, but I do it over the towel. And I want a full seal there, okay? I'm gonna set that on the towel so it dries. Try not to get our white tablecloth messy. I'm gonna do the same thing in here. Just kind of run that around, okay? And I close it. I always close it when I'm done because I have knocked these things over too many times and I have purple all over the floor and it stains everything, okay? So then I take the glue, and the glue isn't as drippy, but it stains even worse. So I'm gonna take a big old glob of it over the container and just kind of scoosh it around there. Nothing, again, we're not worrying about making this like pressure sensitive or anything, okay? Let's see if I can set it there. Ooh, it balanced. Okay, I'm gonna run it in here, same thing. I'm just gonna kind of run a coat around there and I put that down. Then I push it together and give it like a 90-degree turn, okay? And I gotta hold it for a couple of seconds and make sure that glue really sets, okay? You don't have to hold it for long, like 30 seconds, okay? And that's good. That little bead there is gonna take some time to dry, okay? You don't wanna go touching it. Give that some time to dry. Only do one end, because then you're gonna pour some water in. How much water? I never actually measured it. I make it about halfway full, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and pour it in. Again, there's no pressure, so it's not likely to spill. Okay, and it's about halfway, give or take, so something like that. I'll glue the other end, do the same thing, the primer, the glue, or the one-step thing if you've got that. Hold it on, press that on, okay? That's what we've got. That is plenty all by itself. but that's kind of boring, right? So we use this glue, or excuse me, paint. That's not glue, that's paint. We use this paint to make it a fun color, like our gold one there. And if you use just standard spray paint, it's gonna kind of come off. I used that on my first one, and I ended up with patients leaving with like gold on their palm. Then I did a clear coat, and it's okay. I went and got this paint. It bonds to the plastic, so it shouldn't come off. So if you get that special kind of paint, it bonds, does a great job. So for less than 10 bucks, we have a great proprioceptive wrist device. It's just something different, right? To change it up, give them something different than the wrist maze or some of the other options we use all the time to give them some of that small motor control proprioceptive awareness. So that's our slosh pipe. Now, let's see what Miranda has next for us.
Thanks, Josh, for that great demonstration of the slosh pipes. I thought of something while you were doing it, and that's you could use different diameters of of PVC piping, so you would have different grips. So, it'd be a little bit easier to grip a smaller diameter. And also you could change the length because then you would get some loading or additional loading when you're doing it. All right, now let's get those thumbs moving. I'm going to be talking about making a thumb dextrosizer. So this is something simple and something you can use your scraps for, and it's something that you can also give the patients to take home so they can work on their home exercise program. So you're just going to take a small square of thermoplastic scrap material and throw it in the splint pan. And then you're going to go ahead and bring it out, and you're going to wrap it around the thumb joint. And with that simple stretch and tag method that Josh and I are always talking about. So you're going to put it off like that, and then you're going to let it cool. So here's one that I already have finished. And if you want, depending upon how much range of motion they need at the IP, you can cut it down. But for this specific one, I want to focus more on EPL extension and radial abduction of the thumb. So here is one of the final products. So I put a little piece of Velcro right on the bottom aspect and a little piece of strapping material. And then with the wire, so you can change your wire direction and angles depending upon what you're working on, but you just want to take the end and start bending it. And I do 90-degree angles and 45-degree angles, just a combination. And then you're going to put a little small washer, so something like this, onto the wire. And then how you secure it is you put the wire down on the side. So you'd put the wire down the side like this, and then you would put a piece of thermoplastic material right over the top. So you're sandwiching the wire in between the pieces of thermoplastic. So just a quick little demo, then you hook it on, and then I usually have them support their forearm, and then you have them move the washer around. And then you can even change the wire direction once it's on, depending upon how they're doing it and what your goals are. All right, there's a simple demonstration of thumb range of motion.
Thanks, Miranda. That was awesome. Now, let's talk about doing some translation with stuff you probably already have around your clinic. Translation is shifting things from the palm to the fingertips or fingertip to palm. That's something that for a lot of our patients with a stiff hand or finger or thumb amputations, or even wrist function disabilities, stiffness, that kind of thing, it's going to help them with those skills. So let's talk about kind of the basics concepts first. So I take these slow foam squares and chop them up into a bunch of different pieces, right? And so then we're going to work on kind of spreading them out, and I'll tell them I want you to pick up one and hold it in your palm. A second one, hold it in your palm, and we do that with 3 to 4 depending on the size of their hand, how much dysfunction they're having. Then they take it out, take one, back out to your fingertips, drop it in the container. Take another one, back out to your fingertips. Works really well for a stiff thumb on those last couple. Get it all the way out, drop it in. I'm also doing an awful lot of rotation, unloaded, light, gentle forearm rotation to get that in and out of my hand. Okay, so we're picking them up and putting them down. Now, there's a couple of rules with this I have to give patients because they'll start doing this whole like drop them out. And so there's a couple of rules I give them. The first one is no sliding things to the edge of the table, especially when we get to the coins, they want to slide it to the edge. So no sliding. They have to pick it up with a nice good tip-to-tip pincer grasp. The next one, everything has to go from fingertip to palm. So I'll have patients kind of picking it up down here. And then they'll be dropping it because it has to go palm to fingertip. They'll be dropping it this way. That's not translation, okay? So the third rule is no using gravity. So when they've got a couple in their hand, I don't want them letting gravity take it to their fingertips and then dropping it. I want them actually using that dexterity to shift it out to the fingertips, okay? Last rule is no shaking it or like throwing it out to the fingertips. I want them moving it. Now, if I've got some patients who are really stiff, they're really struggling, I'll allow them a little bit of that kind of like shifted out there just so they get that successful completion of the task, right? We don't want to put all the structure on them and then they just get stuck. So let's talk about some scaling. I start with foam squares. There's lots of good texture. They're a good size. They grab onto skin well with the texture of those foam squares, and they close well in the hand. Take it up a notch from there, and I'll add marbles. I have the towel out so the marbles don't roll all over the place. I'll kind of spread these out, add some marbles to it, and then I'll tell them I want 2 foam squares and 2 marbles. And now I'm going to get some stereognosis, right? Now I'm going to say take a foam square out to your fingertips. And those marbles are really hard because unlike the foam squares, there's no facets, there's no corners, they're really smooth, they don't have texture to them, so it's really hard to keep those in the hand. So we take one out here, we take a marble out, keeping the others in my palm, and I drop it in, take another marble out, drop it in, and we just kind of cycle through that as they go, okay? So that's another way to scale it up. Another option is taking my Mancala board, opening that up, and I got a fun Mancala board I got way back when I was in peds. It has all these fun little animals in it, right? They're all color-coded. I got lions and Scotty dogs and all kinds of fun stuff. Same thing, sorting it by color, shifting those around, and these things, while they are smaller than marbles, have some facets to them, lots of features and characteristics to these that make it a little easier to hang on to, but they're very small, so that's another option. The highest level of this is coins, and so I'll take these coins and spread them out, and I make sure the coins are completely flat, right? I don't want them stacked on each other. And then they're doing the same thing with the coins, picking those up. That's a whole lot more refined because now they're having to pick up a coin off the table. Sometimes I'll guide it towards use your thumb or use your finger to peel it off the table, depending on what their need is or what their ability is. And then the same thing, doing that, pick it up and pull it into the palm. Same thing, shifting one out at a time, and then drop it in the bank. These little containers I get from Home Depot or Lowe's, in where they keep all the stuff that holds screws and garage organization, that kind of stuff. For like $1 or $2, you get one of these things. They open up really well, and it's a nice small container that holds stuff on my shelf really well. So that's translation, working on forearm rotation, dexterity, stiff hand, stiff thumb, all that kind of stuff. Now, let's go play with some food.
All right, thanks, Josh. I am going to be talking about rice and all the various ways that we can use rice. One thing that I want to mention is that if you have a higher table, that I always have the patient put the rice in their lap, therefore it doesn't cause shoulder problems, which sometimes occur when doing tabletop activities. First, I'm going to show you using a cup in the rice, and the reason that we do this is you can work on forearm rotation. So you want to go ahead and scoop, and then go ahead and pour. So this is really good for people with distal radius fractures that have difficulty with forearm rotation. Another one that I want to show you is using a large plastic spoon, and these are really cheap. You can get them for like $1. And you can use them where they're just holding this handle if they have good grip. If they don't have very good grip, you can add grip to it to make it a little larger. So this one I like to use for various things, but one of my favorites is scooping and then turning. So you get that good stretch of the extensors. So this is good for people with difficulties with wrist flexion. It can be good for people with tennis elbow that are a little further along and don't have that acute pain. And then you can also have them rotate in, and then you can also have them do more radial deviation and ulnar deviation. So there's lots of different ways you can use the spoon for scooping. The other thing that rice is good for, and I think this is what a lot of us use it for, is just grabbing the rice, so doing a desensitization, but also you can have them grab the rice, turn, and sift. And the sifting works your intrinsics. So that's an added thing that they can do while they're grabbing the rice. Another thing that you can do is you can put various things in there like coins, pen caps, screws, paper clips, and then you can make it to where they have to feel them without looking, so it's more of a stereognosis exercise. And then another fun little pearl, like with our rice, we put some essential oils in it so it doesn't have that grainy smell. So you can do lavender or calming things, but just be aware if your patients are sensitive to smells, you may want to have one that has smells in it and one that doesn't.
Thanks for hanging out and seeing some of our favorite activities.
We hope you had a fun time. If you have any ideas about activities that you do in the clinic, please share with us. And also if you have questions, we're happy to answer those.
If you get a chance, check us out on Instagram and Facebook at Hand Therapy Academy or on our website, handtherapyacademy.com. We try to put up lots of resources, more videos like this, more home exercise program, PDF handouts, and lots more blog content as well.
And we'll see you next time for more fresh and fun ideas.